Thank you for that warm and gracious welcome. Get ourselves organized here. And I'd like to recognize that color guard. How about that color guard? That's an outstanding job. I'll tell you, every time I see that flag, that red, white, and blue flag go up, the feeling of joy and pride that I feel just warms my heart. And I know that those of you that are here today have that same feeling. So I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here to join us today and honor these veterans. Veterans, families, friends, and neighbors, welcome. I'm deeply honored to be your speaker here today. It was almost 100 years ago that the war that was known as the Great War, and the war to end all wars, finally came to an end. And as the pastor said in his eloquent prayer, it was the 11th day, the 11th month, the 11th hour of that year of 1918 that the murderous rifle fire and artillery barrages stopped. That day has been sacred ever since. It was first known as Armistice Day. And then in 1954, President Eisenhower decreed that it would be a day to honor and remember all of our American veterans who have given so much to protect that which we hold so dear. It's a time to come together, to reflect on those who have served in the past, those who serve today, and those who will serve us in the future. The veterans serve for a lot of different reasons, many reasons. Certainly to protect our nation, but also to travel and to seek out adventure, to get an education, or to learn a useful skill. Many join out of a sense of duty and the idea that they just want to do something important. And I do think there are those, especially those Marines, who sometimes just like to fight. Right. You might say that I was born into the service. My father was a Marine, and he did a tour in Vietnam with a unit that would later be known as the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force. I was born in the base hospital in Camp Pendleton a couple years after he returned from the war. I didn't earn my Eagle, Globe, and Anchor all at once right then. It took me a few years to get my own EGA. But by the summer of 1987, I was a midshipman that just finished my first year of training. I was working to get my commission as a second lieutenant in the Marines. I've been assigned to serve on board the USS Kitty Hawk aircraft carrier during the summer break from school. And I was 18 years old at the time. You talk about a big adventure. 18-year-old going halfway across the world to land on an aircraft carrier. Yeah, that was pretty cool. It was exciting traveling the world, and I had the feeling of being part of something bigger, something important. So I set out. First stopped in Italy, and where I boarded a small airplane, a propeller airplane, that was carrying mail for the crew of the ship. And so it was a short flight, and as we got nearer, started our descent down what first appeared as a small, tiny, gray dot in the blue sea. Got larger and larger as we came down to land on the deck. And I don't know if most of you have probably seen an aircraft carrier or been on it, but it's amazing when you get down on the thing. Truly amazing to me that in this place, off the coast of Italy, the United States had such a massive presence. And there was Old Glory on the fantail of that ship, flying. So I was very proud to be part of that team. And I stood watch on the bridge at night. It's one of the duties as a midshipman. I did a lot of different things. And I looked on with astonishment. In the dead of night, F-14 pilots were landing and taking off in the darkness. And it was amazing to me, and I knew I was in the right place. Everywhere I looked, I saw Marines and sailors doing impressive things. They were professional, confident, and strong. And they were what we like to call salted. Those of you that have been at sea, you know what I mean. That means they've been at sea long enough, long enough to tell you stories that would leave you wide-eyed with disbelief, or leave you leave you rolling on the floor with laughter. They were quite the characters. And, you know, our veterans exemplify the very best that our nation has and is. They go places and do things that others just can't do or won't do. To them, it's not just a job, it's who they are at their core. And, you know, veterans, they don't have special magic powers like the superheroes you see in the movies. They're real-life people, just like all of us, with fears, weaknesses, hopes, and dreams. And it's easy to think of our veterans as, you know, older, 30-something, 40-something, well-developed, mature men and women. But I'll tell you, most of the Marines and sailors that I deployed with, they were between 18 and 24 years old, not much older than some of the young folks we have here today. Many had enlisted to get help with school, and they really didn't think that we'd ever go to war. It just didn't seem like, at that period, it just didn't seem like that was going to happen. But if you look at our history, it tells a different story. Major conflicts tend to happen every 20 years or so. And for most of our nation's history, our forces have been in action somewhere in the world against those who would pose us a threat. We're now in our 15th year of sustained combat operations, our longest war ever. And our veterans are not the ones that decided to get into the conflict, but they are the ones that answered the call, and the call went out. In 2002, I took command of the Marine Reserve Unit in Greensboro. We were a communications company. Most of my Marines had specialties in things like radios, telephones, electronics. But we also knew that tradition. Those Marines that are here know it. Every Marine is a rifleman, first and foremost. And we knew that the situation with Iraq was continuing to escalate. And if we deployed for combat missions, we would all be doing important things in addition to our regular duties. Security patrols, convoy operations, perimeter defense. We'd heard stories about the enemy we would face, the weapons they had, things like poison gas, long-range Scud missiles, massive artillery batteries, and battalions of mechanized infantry and tanks. We'd heard of their cruelty, even to their own people, who dared to try for small amounts of freedom. So I trained my team hard, very hard. We hiked many miles in full packs. We ran in boots and flak jackets. We perfected our skills with our weapons. We trained in hand-to-hand combat. We trained at night, trained in the rain, and in the mud, and the cold. And then we put on gas masks, and we did it all over again, even more. And during that time of preparation, I talked to my Marines about a lot of things, as you would imagine going into combat. We talked about tactics, procedures, equipment maintenance, safety. But I also talked to them about something else that's very important, and that's courage, both physical and moral courage. Courage to do their duty, even when things got tough or dangerous. And the courage to stand up, take a stand when their values and their morals were challenged. And I talked to them about how courage is not the absence of fear. Courageous people get frightened, scared, and worried. But the difference is they do what has to be done anyway to accomplish the mission in the face of danger, ridicule, or risk. Make a conscious choice to do the right thing, not necessarily the easy thing. To be the best version of themselves, to take a stand and make a difference. To me, that's what being a veteran is all about. It's about realizing that the world is a dangerous, sometimes evil place. Knowledge that there are those who would do us, our family, and our nation great harm. The veteran proudly stands up and says, what we have and who we are is worth protecting. And together, we'll do whatever it takes to defend that which we hold so dear. I also talked with my Marines about leadership and how leaders make a difference, and how a leader's very first job is to lead himself in his own behavior, to hold himself to a higher standard, to set the example in all that he does, to take charge of those people and things that are entrusted to him to accomplish that mission, whatever the mission may be, without complaining, without excuses, and despite long nights, little sleep, the heat, or the cold, or anything else that gets in his way. And when you combine courage with leadership, that's when you get the stuff of legend. You get the charges. Places like Belleau Wood in World War I, where the Americans fought so fiercely against the Germans, they were given the name Teufelhunde, which loosely translates into devil dog. You get the supreme sacrifice of our forces on the shores and slopes of Normandy, France, where our troops, along with our allies, stepped out of their amphibious transports into the surf in places like Omaha Beach, into direct fire from Nazi machine guns. What kind of courage did it take as those doors on those amphibious transports lowered? What kind of person would knowingly set foot on that beach with a full understanding of what lay ahead? What kind of person could not only take those steps forward, but continue on through the hedgerows, over the cliffs, fighting through everything that got in their way, pushing the Germans back all the way to their homeland, into victory and to peace? Or in the hills of Korea, where Americans defended freedom against overwhelming numbers of Chinese and North Korean troops, in a place called the Chosin Reservoir, where they were outnumbered, surrounded, and cut off from reinforcements. One American division surrounded by 22 combined divisions of North Koreans and Chinese. Temperatures dropping to below 30 degrees, below zero. So cold that weapons malfunctioned, vehicles wouldn't run, they couldn't dig in. But they fought their way out. They completely smashed and destroyed the enemy divisions that dared to get in their way, because that's who they were. Or in the jungles of Vietnam, where they answered the nation's call. They left family, school, careers, to go to the other side of the world. And I'll tell you something, I'm a student of history, and they militarily defeated a deadly and resourceful enemy. Places such as Hue City, and Quezon, and the Ia Drang Valley. They couldn't overcome the division lack of leadership here on the home front. And we owe those Vietnam vets a debt of gratitude for their sacrifice of service. So on a crisp January day in 2003, my reserve unit gathered at our training center in Greensboro. We began a journey that would take us first to Camp Lejeune, and then on to the Kuwaiti Desert and beyond. There was an older gentleman in a wheelchair there that day, and he showed up to see us off. He was a Vietnam War veteran, and he said that after September 11th, he tried to come back into the Corps. They wouldn't let him. But as the company commander, he was giving me a hard time about it. He said, I want to go with you. Take me. I can get on the bus. And he promised me that if I just let him go, that he would do his duty and he would hold his own. And as I spoke to him, I sensed that even beneath his kidding, if that man was given the chance, he would have gotten on that bus and gone right with us all the way. Dropped everything in a minute if he could have. And here was a man that had served and sacrificed, but held his conviction so deeply that he would do it all over again if given the chance. As our convoy pulled out through the crowds and gathered to see us off, I could see him, and he saluted sharply, was holding his small American flag. And I tell you, the sense of duty, the honor and commitment is typical of those that we honor today. Forward to March of 2003, that same year, I found myself with 320 of my Marines standing in formation on a vast plain in the northwest desert of Kuwait with 50,000 other sailors, Marines, and soldiers who made up the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force out of Camp Pendleton, California. We were in the desert to prepare for the coming invasion of Iraq. We were tense, anxious, but firmly resolute that we would conduct ourselves in line with the highest traditions of our service, preparing to follow in the footsteps of armies from ancient times in the land where the Greeks under Alexander had clashed with the Persians and the Roman legions had squared off against the Parthians. Now it was our turn to charge into the land known as Mesopotamia. Our leader was Lieutenant General James Conway, who would later go on to become the Commandant of the Marine Corps. And at that point, we were the tip of the spear. He told us what was at stake, and he warned us of what we would face. He told us he was counting on us to do our duty and live up to the legacy of those who had gone before. And at that moment, again, I knew that I was in exactly the right place at the right time. With all the negativity you see these days, all the stories on the news and the terrible things that we hear every day, it's tempting to become discouraged, to give up on people, and just withdraw into our inner circle, into those that think and look just like we do. But I believe that we as a people are better than that. Our veterans are a reminder that there are those among us who do care deeply about our nation and all of its people. And when I go down to Camp Lejeune, I see all the young men and women of different backgrounds, ethnicities, colors, and it fills me with hope. Hope for the future, because they are that future and they protect it. There's also a very strong link to the past through our veterans. I'll tell you a story. When I was very young, about the age of my son Evan, my grandfather showed me an old photograph. It was taken in the 1920s. And it was him when he was a Boy Scout. And he was there at a Civil War reunion with a group of veterans from both sides. And he told me how they respected each other, because they had both fought, even though they were on opposite sides, they fought for what they believed in. And after the war, they put their differences aside and become Americans. War is a horrible, brutal, terrible thing. And the most difficult task of my career was writing a letter of condolence to parents who had lost a son. And right next to that was visiting some of my Marines who had been badly injured, who were in the hospital. Nothing more difficult, and that brought tears to my eyes. And it weighed very heavy on my heart, and still does to this day. But as bad as conflict is, I can tell you that there's something worse. It's a life without faith or freedom. It's a life of living without hope, in fear and despair, being afraid to confront evil, and to stand up for all those things that we hold to be right and true. One day I hope that all nations can put aside their differences, and like the Bible says, we can beat our swords into plowshares and live in peace with all people. But until that day, I'm glad that our service members are standing guard out on the high seas, far off jungles, remote mountains, and lonely deserts. Submarines, patrol boats, aircraft, and battle tanks, and small guard shacks around the world. So today we honor and remember our veterans, those who are here with us, and those who have gone on to their next duty station. And there are many of those. And I offer my thanks to all those who have served. We're serving now as that next generation of hardcore warriors who serve on distant battlefields in the future, where they will continue the legacy of courage, honor, and commitment to duty. And they will take their place in the long line of American men and women who have gone before them to serve our nation and protect all that we hold to be sacred. Thank you again.